China is making waves in the news recently with the issue of the South China Sea. Today, however, we will be discussing why China's crash has already begun. You came here for the truth, so let me unveil that for you. We're going to stay focused on the financial sector for this moment, for this video in particular, but there definitely is a lot of news happening with the South China Sea and their artificial islands that they have been creating. So let's begin with the charts that simply do not lie. This is telling you the truth. That's what this channel is all about. As we look at China's retail sales, the years from approximately, let's say, the year 2000 up until the global Great Recession, or as I call it, the financial crisis, it was going up and up and up, and China was simply booming. This was obviously good for business, good for commodities in general, because of the activity that occurs in China or any other nation for that matter, having to make all of these materials and then export them. So it's basically good for the whole world. But then you have a recession, and ever since that time, we can see a decline in China's retail sales. This is very important to note because you can't just have one country that simply runs on its own. This is globalization, and you cannot run away from that. Now, is that to say that China is in a depression today and China will never be strong again? No, absolutely not. China has a very good future down the road. There are going to be many bumps along the way. You can't go from where they were, let's say, a few decades ago to where they are today without having a few bumps in the road, and surely there will be many more. Look at the retail sales as one factor. I'm going to move on quickly, try to get through the video as quick as possible, where we have China's industrial production. And this is also declining as well, once again, heading up through until the recession and then a straight line downward afterwards. You can't hide from this type of data. And what they're trying to note in these charts here is that China is the, quote, dollar economy, something that we need to think about as the months and the years go by, because the US is, in fact, not where they once were. In my book here, talking about China and the US and their relationship, I have a whole chapter in that, and I said, show me the money. It's been reported by Ben Bernanke that China holds more than $2 trillion of treasury securities. This is a dangerous amount when you think of the possibilities. Now, look at the highlighted portion here. China literally holds the future of the U.S. in their hands, and this could mean a disaster for the U.S. As of the last few decades, the U.S. has been able to continue to consume at its unbelievable level because the debt is purchased mostly by China. They are one of the biggest purchasers of their debt, that is no doubt. We also have Japan and, of course, the Federal Reserve. What I want to note by this is that it is very important to see who owns the debt, because the debt ultimately is the wealth of that nation, really is the supporting factor. And when you have nothing but debt to account for, you have a big problem. So what if the US is in trouble? Well, then who's going to buy all the Chinese products? Well, surely many more Chinese people are moving from the rural areas into the cities. These Chinese are basically able to then consume more. They are no longer growing their own food. They have to go to the store to buy it, and they're buying more products and so on and so forth. This is ultimately positive for commodities, positive for industry in general. But you can't necessarily continue to consume at this rate forever. There are slowdowns, and we can see this specifically in China with the amount that they're going ahead with the lending rules. They're being relaxed and all of the other things that I've covered in previous videos. Not something that can be sustained. Let's move on to this as we look at the 6-month cumulative change holdings of US dollar assets. This goes to show you that there are areas of the financial sector that are hurting very bad. China's stock market right now is going up. The US stock market going up. But when you look at this in this regard, you see that there is a much bigger problem that is not being discussed. Let's look at this here. China exports obviously being probably one of the most primary factors that we need to look at, because it shows you the growth or lack thereof of the world economy. And look at this. You can see it specifically, yes, during the financial crisis, it took a big beating. Then it came back up quite quickly because of all the quantitative easing that was taking place. But really, that was a very short-term solution, because ever since, it's been going down. And then we had what happened with Europe, 2011, 2012, and that really just has been dragging for years, not able to go into a realistic area where they need to be to maintain their growth. What about their imports? The Chinese imports, again, suffering badly. China itself is dealing with problems. It's not just the whole world, although obviously that's a big problem. But as I said previously, that they're having their own issues. They have to loosen those lending practices, start handing out loans to people they normally wouldn't, and so on. This is a very, very serious situation. So look at this here. The US needs to befriend China, or else all hell is going to break loose. That's George Soros, the insider, part of the elite, and he's saying this, quoting in the Business Insider. Both the US and China have a vital interest in reaching an understanding because the alternative is so unpalatable. The benefits of an eventual agreement between China and the US could be equally far-reaching. And I do believe that this is really the case. They have to be friends simply because there is no other way for them to go about this. They need to use each other, and that's the only way this will continue. You can't really have a China and a US that don't agree, at least on some deals, because they need to be there to buy each other's stuff, to sell each other, to import, to export, and basically to keep the world economy going. This is not the time for any sort of war or even the rhetoric. And look at this here. We're looking at the Sydney Morning Herald, where they set up an agreement here between China and Australia that will eventually allow 95% of Australian goods exports to enter China duty-free. It is, according to them, a monumentous day. That's the Prime Minister. And he basically said that they are having this situation to allow for a more friendly import-export deal. And what this really sets up is in fact positive for the Australian economy. See, they have an advantage being where they are, obviously a big trading partner with countries like China, with other countries in Asia. So as the nations of the West begin to slowly die, Australia has this advantage that it's going to be consistently improving as a trading partner in between nations like China. Very, very positive. I'm always getting inquiries from people in Australia and surrounding regions wondering what is going to happen with Australia. Well, certainly this is the kind of thing that you need to watch out for. Although I'm not necessarily thinking that all trade deals are very good. It can sometimes be a very big Trojan horse. But I would definitely say that this is a positive thing for the economy of Australia. So to all those Australians listening, and I just wanted to note right here that if you are interested in videos specific to your country, I have done many of these, and that is available on my main channel page on the YouTube. If you scroll down, there's a section called Global Economic Collapse, and you can go through there, and there are ones on the UK and China and Japan and the US and Canada, and I'm always expanding on that, and you can basically just watch the videos that pertain to you and the other ones that you want to view. If you found this video informative, please give me a thumbs up. I appreciate that very much. And if you found this video informative, I know you'll find my book, The Money GPS, even more informative. And you can actually look through the book yourself. If you go over to Amazon, they have a look inside feature. You could flip through the book and see if you like it. Take care.